The emergency alarm screamed through the massive council chambers, making everyone freeze in terror. Ambassador Kale, a creature with long, flowing tentacles, twisted nervously as bright holographic screens showed the horrible news. 17. Entire star systems had gone completely silent. No signals, no life, nothing at all. "The Voidstalkers are awake," said the Council Prime in her cold, echoing voice. Her body looked like it was made of living crystal, and the chamber's dim lights bounced off her in strange patterns. "They have been sleeping for 3,000 years. Now they hunt again." The greatest hunters in the known galaxy had already come to answer this desperate call for help. Each one was a legend in their own right. Feared across countless worlds, Vexstar appeared from the shadows like a ghost made of darkness. He was a shadowbender, one of the most dangerous assassins alive. His people could control light itself, becoming invisible whenever they wanted. Even now, standing in the bright chamber lights, he seemed to flicker in and out of existence. His voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once, like whispers in an empty room. The massive Nexari called Quindos stood perfectly still like a statue. His race had replaced most of their organic brains with advanced computers. He could think faster than any living being, calculating thousands of battle plans in seconds. His glowing red eyes never blinked as they processed endless streams of tactical data. Thrackle the Berserker was from the warrior planet Corva. His people had changed, their bodies with bioengineering, making themselves into living weapons. His arms ended in razor-sharp claws that could cut through steel. Scars covered his massive frame from hundreds of battles. When he flexed his muscles, you could hear the enhanced bones creaking under his skin. And then there was Jin Wu, the human. Sat quietly in the corner of the great chamber, carefully cleaning his simple rifle. He looked so ordinary compared to the others. No special powers that could bend reality. No computer brain that could think at impossible speeds. No claws or enhanced strength. It's just a regular human soldier with standard military gear that any Earth Marine might carry. The other hunters kept looking at him with confusion and barely hidden disgust. To them, he seemed like a cruel joke. While they were legendary warriors who had defeated armies, he was just a basic human with a simple gun. "Are you completely certain about bringing the human?" Vexstar asked, his voice floating through the air like smoke. "The Voidstalkers have eaten entire battle fleets. They have destroyed civilizations that lasted for millions of years. Can one human possibly do against such monsters?" Jin Wu looked up from his weapon with calm, steady eyes. "I am here because I volunteered for this mission, same as all of you." His voice was quiet but firm. He did not sound afraid, even though everyone in the room knew this was likely a suicide mission. The other hunters shared looks of disbelief. In their minds, this human's presence was almost insulting. They were the greatest warriors their species had ever produced. The council had paired them with what seemed like the weakest fighter in the galaxy. But the orders from the council were absolutely clear. Find the Voidstalkers wherever they is. We're hiding. Track them to their source. Kill them before they could destroy any more worlds. Mission was simple, even if it was impossible. Their warship launched from the council's space station, heading toward the dead zones where the stalkers had been feeding. The ship was equipped with the most advanced technology the galaxy could provide, but even that felt inadequate against an enemy that had already proven unstoppable. As they traveled through hyperspace toward their destination, Jin Wu stood alone. At the observation deck, staring out at the stars rushing past, the other hunters were in different parts of the ship, preparing for battle in their own ways. Vexstar meditated in complete darkness. Quindos updated his tactical databases. Thrackle sharpened his claws and practiced combat moves. But Jin Wu just stood there watching the stars and thinking. He wondered why the council had really chosen him for this mission. It could not be because of his fighting skills. Compared to his teammates, he was nothing special. Any of them could probably defeat him in single combat without breaking a sweat. So why was he here? What did the council know that they were not telling him? There had to be a reason, some secret purpose that made sense of this strange decision. Ship's engines hummed quietly as they flew deeper into space, heading toward a confrontation that would determine the fate of countless worlds. Jin Wu checked his rifle one more time, making sure every part was clean and ready. He might not have special powers or enhanced abilities, but he had something else. He had the stubborn determination that had carried humanity from a single planet to the stars, and sometimes that was enough. The stars continued to rush past as they flew toward their destiny. Carrying the galaxy's last hope and the most unlikely package imaginable, the Kepler 442 star system should have been alive with activity. Massive. Mining ships should have been pulling precious metals from the asteroid belts. Trading stations should have been buzzing with merchants from dozens of different worlds. Cargo haulers should have been moving supplies between the colonies on each planet. Instead, their ship drifted through what looked like a cosmic cemetery. The planets hung in space like dried-up fruit, their once-green surfaces now cracked and gray like old bones. Where cities should have glowed with millions of lights, there was only darkness. Where oceans should have sparkled blue, there were only empty gray basins filled with dust. "Are you detecting any life signs down there?" asked Quindos from the pilot's chair. His mechanical voice showed no emotion, but his glowing red eyes flickered faster than usual as his computer brain processed the horrible scene. Jin. Wu sat at the sensor controls, watching the readings with growing dread. At all. Not even the smallest bacteria or insects. It is like every living thing just disappeared completely. The silence that followed was heavy with fear. Even Thrackle, the fearless berserker warrior, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His enhanced senses could smell the wrongness in the air. Even through the ship's sealed atmosphere, they chose to land on the third planet, where a human research facility had stopped sending messages 6 months ago. The building looked perfectly normal from the outside. The walls were not damaged. The doors were still closed properly. Solar panels on the roof were still clean and undamaged. But when they walked inside, they found something much worse. Then destruction. The facility was completely empty, but not in a way that made sense. Coffee cups sat half full on desks, as if someone had just stepped away for a moment. Computer screens still glowed with half-finished reports. Personal photos. A family sat undisturbed on workstations. It looked like every single person had simply vanished in the middle of whatever they were doing. No signs of fighting, no blood or damage, no bodies anywhere. Just empty rooms filled with the ghost-like echoes of normal life that had suddenly stopped. Jin Wu picked up a data pad from one of the desks. The last entry was dated exactly 6 months ago. A scientist had been writing about strange energy readings in the system's outer rim. The message ended in the middle of a sentence, as if the writer had simply stopped existing while typing. Thrackle stood near the main entrance, his massive head tilted as he sniffed the air. His people had enhanced their senses far beyond normal limits. He could smell things that happened days ago, hear sounds too quiet for others to notice. "Something is watching us right now," he growled in his deep voice. "I can feel eyes on us, but I cannot tell where they are coming from." The attack happened so suddenly that none of them had time to react properly. Reality itself seemed to twist and bend like someone was folding space into impossible shapes. A creature materialized right in front of them, but calling it a creature was not really accurate. It was a massive living shadow that hurt to look at directly. Parts of it seemed to exist in normal space, while other parts flickered in and out of dimensions that human eyes could not properly see. It moved like liquid darkness, but also like hungry fire. When it opened what might have been a mouth, they could see stars being born and dying inside it. Vexstar reacted first, using his shadow-bending powers to try and blind the thing. He wrapped darkness around it like a blanket, but his shadows passed right through its form without having any effect at all. It was like trying to fight smoke with more smoke. Quindos's computer brain instantly calculated 17 different ways to attack the creature. His red eyes flashed as he processed every possible angle, every potential weakness, every tactical option available. But within nanoseconds, he realized that none of his calculations meant anything. This thing operated outside the normal laws of physics that his strategies were based on. Only Thrackle seemed able to hurt it. The berserker warrior roared with rage and charged forward, his razor-sharp claws extended. Creature, his claws actually cut into its semi-solid flesh, causing it to shriek with a sound like tearing metal. But something terrible happened with each wound he inflicted. Instead of getting weaker, the creature seemed to grow stronger. It was feeding on Thrackel's anger and fury, using his berserker rage as food to make itself more powerful. Jin Woo raised his rifle and fired a full magazine of bullets at the thing. The rounds passed harmlessly through its shadowy form and embedded themselves in the wall behind it. His most advanced human weapons were completely useless. Then he noticed something very strange. As the creature moved around the room, attacking his teammates, it carefully avoided one particular area. There was a fallen nameplate on the floor that read Dr. Minsu Park, Xenobiology. Other human personal items were scattered nearby. A coffee mug with Korean writing, family photos, a small flag from Earth. The Void Stalker seemed almost afraid of these simple human objects. It gave them a wide berth, as if touching them would cause it pain. "Everyone follow me," Jinwoo shouted over the sound of the battle. "Stay close to the human artifacts." He led his teammates through the facility, deliberately choosing paths that took them past areas where human belongings were scattered. The creature followed them, but moved hesitantly, like it was walking through a field of invisible landmines. They managed to reach their ship and escape into space. But Jinwoo could not stop thinking about what he had seen. The most powerful creature in the galaxy, something that could devour entire civilizations, seemed to be afraid of simple human objects. What did that mean? And more importantly, why? Deep in the heart of the dead star system, they found something that should not have existed. It was a structure so massive and wrong that just looking at it made their eyes water and their brains hurt. The thing twisted space around itself like someone folding paper. But the paper was reality itself, and the folds went in directions that had no names. The stalker hive pulsed with evil life, like a giant heart made of darkness and hunger. Jinwoo could feel it feeding on something terrible, the memories and souls of billions of creatures that had been consumed over thousands of years. Every pulse sent waves of absorbed screams and final thoughts rippling through space. "I cannot get proper sensor readings," Quindos reported, his normally perfect mechanical voice starting to break up with static. "This structure exists in 11 different dimensions at the same time. My computer brain cannot process what it is seeing." The entrance to the hive was not really an entrance at all. It was more like a wound cut into the fabric of reality itself. As soon as they flew their small ship through it, the wound sealed behind them with a sound like breaking glass. They were trapped inside. The moment they stepped out of their ship, Jinwoo knew they were in serious trouble. The laws of physics that govern normal space did not work here. Gravity flowed around them like thick water, sometimes pulling them toward the floor and sometimes toward the ceiling. Corridors that should have led forward instead led to rooms that had existed yesterday or would exist tomorrow. "Everyone stay close together," Jinwoo called out to his teammates, but his voice echoed strangely. He could hear his own words coming from the past and the future at the same time. As if he had already spoken them and was also about to speak them, they moved carefully through the twisted passages. But Jinwoo could feel eyes watching them from every shadow. The stalkers were here, waiting for them. This was not a surprise attack. It was a trap that had been carefully prepared. The creatures struck without warning. Vexstar died first, and his death was horrible to witness. The Shadowbender had spent his entire life mastering darkness and light, becoming one of the most feared assassins in the galaxy. But the stalkers could see across all possible spectrums of existence, including ones that had no names. They grabbed him with claws that existed in multiple dimensions and pulled him apart. His screams echoed in languages that would not be invented. For hundreds of years, as if his death was happening across all of time at once, Quindos lasted longer, because his computer brain could think faster than any living creature. His red eyes flashed like strobe lights as he calculated thousands of different escape routes every second. He tried every tactical option his vast databases could suggest, but the stalkers learned from each attempt. They adapted to his strategies, faster than even artificial intelligence could process new ones. His final message, transmitted directly to Jinwoo's radio, was just one word: impossible. Thrackel fought like a demon possessed. Berserker rage was legendary even among his warrior people, and for a few precious minutes it seemed like he might actually win. He carved through smaller stalkers with his razor claws, roaring with fury that shook the twisted corridors. His enhanced muscles bulged as he ripped the creatures apart with his bare hands. But Jin Woo realized with growing horror that Throckel's rage was exactly what the stalkers wanted. They were not trying to kill him quickly, they were feeding on his anger and fury like vampires drinking blood. With each moment of berserker rage, they grew stronger, while Throckel grew weaker. Soon he became like an empty shell, still fighting with mechanical movements, but no longer truly alive in any way that mattered. Jin Woo ran through the nightmare corridors, now completely alone. Behind him, he could hear the sounds of his last teammate being consumed by the hungry darkness. His simple rifle felt pathetically useless in his hands, but he kept running anyway because stopping meant death. As he fled through the impossible geometry of the hive, a terrible understanding began to grow in his mind. This had all been planned. From the very beginning, stalkers had not been surprised when the hunting team arrived. They had been waiting for them, expecting them, preparing for them. But why? What did these ancient monsters want with a small group of hunters? They'd already consumed entire civilizations. They'd eaten billions of souls across thousands of years. Why would they care about 4 individuals? The answer came to him like a cold knife in his stomach. The stalkers had not been waiting for Vexstar, or Quindos, or Throckel. They had been waiting for him, the human, the supposedly weakest member of the team, but that made no sense. He was just a regular soldier with no special powers. What could ancient cosmic horrors possibly want with someone like him? As Jin Woo continued running through corridors that led to places that should not exist, he realized he was about to find out. And he had a feeling that the answer would be more terrifying than anything he could imagine. The hive pulsed around him like a living heart, and somewhere in the darkness ahead, something very old and very hungry was waiting for him to arrive, running through the twisted passages of the nightmare hive. Jin Woo stumbled into a room that made his blood turn cold. It looked like some kind of museum, but a museum designed by monsters. Hundreds of glass containers filled with strange liquid lined the walls from floor to ceiling. Inside each container floated the preserved body of a different alien species. Each specimen had a metal plate attached to its container with writing that hurt Jin Woo's eyes to read. The letters seemed to change and shift as he looked at them, sometimes showing feeding instructions, sometimes showing how long each creature had taken to consume, sometimes showing notes about flavor and nutritional value. It was like looking at a cookbook written by demons. He saw species he recognized from the galactic databases. Proud Zentarian warriors who could lift starships with their bare hands, ethereal mind spinners who could control thoughts across entire planets, ancient Krovar philosophers who had lived for thousands of years, all of them reduced to floating specimens in jars, labeled like ingredients in some cosmic pantry. Then Jin Woo found a section that made his heart stop beating for a moment. Human specimens. Dozens of them floating in the biochambers there. Faces peaceful in death. But these were not recent captures. The containers looked old, covered with a thin layer of dust that suggested they had been here for a very long time, scattered around the human specimen area were ancient records and personal belongings that looked like they came from Earth's early space exploration days. Data logs on old-fashioned storage devices. Personal photos of families back on Earth. Military dog tags with Korean and English names. Small flag with the old United Nations Space Program logo. Jin Woo picked up one of the data storage devices. With shaking hands, it still worked despite being thousands of years old. When he activated it, holographic text appeared in the air, written in Old Korean that he could barely understand. The records told a story that the galaxy had completely forgotten, 3,000 years ago when humanity had just started exploring. Beyond their own solar system, they had encountered the Void Stalkers for the first time. Back then, humans had no advanced technology, no energy weapons or force fields, no alien allies to help them. Just basic rockets and simple guns and the stubborn determination that had carried them from caves to the stars. The main record was a ship's log from Captain Lee Hyun of the exploration vessel New Seoul. Jin Woo watched the holographic recordings. With growing amazement and horror, Captain Lee looked just like any modern human, tired, scared, but absolutely refusing to give up even when facing impossible odds. The recordings showed the battle in fragments. The new soul had been exploring a distant star system when the stalkers found them. The human ship was completely outmatched. Their weapons barely scratched the cosmic horrors, or their shields failed within minutes. Their engines were damaged almost immediately. Any reasonable crew would have surrendered or tried to escape. But Captain Lee and his people did something. That surprised everyone, including the stalkers. They kept fighting. For 6 days straight, without sleep, without proper food, without any real hope of victory. They continued to resist. Jin-Woo watched in fascination as the captain's log showed human after human refusing to give up, even when their ship was falling apart around them. When the main guns failed, they used hand weapons. When the hand weapons ran out of ammunition, they used tools as weapons. When the tools broke, they used their bare hands. The stalkers won the battle, as everyone knew they would. But something completely unexpected happened when they tried to consume the human crew. The ancient monsters discovered they could not properly digest human consciousness, human hope, determination. And what Captain Lee called bloody-minded refusal to accept defeat acted like poison in the stalkers' systems. Every time they tried to feed on human despair, they instead got a mouthful of stubborn defiance that made them sick. Jin-Woo found Captain Lee's final log entry, recorded just before the ship was completely destroyed. The captain's face was bruised and bleeding, but his eyes still burned with unbroken determination. "They expect us to despair," Captain Lee said in the ancient recording. "They expect us to give up and beg for mercy. But they do not understand what they are dealing with. We are human beings. We do not know how to quit." The historical records showed that after this battle, the Void Stalkers had retreated into dormancy. Not because they had been defeated, but because they had been traumatized. For 3,000 years, they had been sleeping and studying, trying to understand how to properly consume human essence without poisoning themselves. They had collected every piece of human culture they could find: music, art, literature, history, philosophy. They had been studying humanity like scientists studying a dangerous new virus, trying to find a way to safely consume what humans had to offer now. Jin-Woo finally understood why he had been chosen for this mission. The Council might not have known it consciously, but somewhere deep in galactic memory was an old truth that had been almost forgotten. When everything else fails, when the greatest warriors and the smartest minds and the most advanced technology cannot solve a problem, there is one last option: send a human. Because humans have one quality that no other species in the galaxy possesses: they do not know how to quit. At the very center of the nightmare hive, Jin-Woo found her waiting for him. The Stalker Queen was older than Earth's sun, a creature of pure hunger that had eaten entire civilizations when humanity was still learning to make fire. She was so ancient and powerful that looking directly at her made reality itself seem to bend and twist. But the most horrible thing about her was not her size or her power. It was the way she spoke to him using the voices of his dead teammates. When she opened her mouth, Vexstar's whispered words came out. When she moved her head, she wore Quindo's S-face like a mask. When she gestured with her claws, Thrackle's roar echoed from her throat. "You understand the truth now," she said, using Vexstar's ghostly voice while wearing his face. "Your species is a mistake, an accident in the design of evolution. You should never have existed at all." Jin-Woo checked his rifle one more time. 3 magazines of ammunition left. Against a creature that had devoured billions of souls across thousands of years, it seemed pathetically useless, but it was all he had. "Maybe you are right," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Maybe we are a mistake, but we are your mistake to live with." The Queen attacked with the fury of all the worlds she had consumed. Reality bent around her like she was using the laws of physics as weapons. Space twisted into impossible shapes. Time flowed backwards and forwards at the same time. Gravity changed directions every few seconds. Trying to crush Jin-Woo against the walls and ceiling, Jin-Woo knew he could not match her power. He was just a human soldier, with basic training and simple weapons. He could not outthink a mind that had been calculating for millions of years. He could not overpower a creature that could reshape reality with a thought. He did not have the alien abilities that his dead teammates had possessed. So he did the only thing humans know how to do when facing impossible odds. He refused to lose. His rifle emptied quickly, the bullets passing harmlessly through the Queen's shifting form. When the ammunition ran out, he grabbed pieces of broken metal from the hive's twisted walls and threw them like spears. When those did nothing, he picked up chunks of debris and used them as clubs. The Queen knocked him down with a casual swipe of her claw that sent him flying across the chamber. Jinwoo hit the wall hard enough to crack several ribs, but he got back up anyway. She broke his left arm with another attack that should have killed him instantly, but he learned to fight one-handed and kept coming at her. "Why will you not despair?" the Queen screamed, her voice fracturing across multiple dimensions at once. "Why do you not give up and feed me with your delicious hopelessness?" Jinwoo spat blood from his mouth and wiped it away with his good hand. His face was a mess of cuts and bruises, but his eyes still burned with unbroken determination. "Because I am human," he gasped, struggling to breathe through his broken ribs. "We do not know how to give up." For the first time in millions of years, the Stalker Queen felt something she'd completely forgotten. Fear. This tiny, weak creature should have been broken hours ago. He should have collapsed in despair and begged for mercy. He should have fed her with the sweet taste of defeat and hopelessness that she craved above all else. Instead, his stubborn hope was burning her from the inside like acid. Every time she tried to consume his despair, she got another dose of human determination that made her sick. His refusal to quit was poisoning her ancient systems. Jin Woo did not defeat the Queen through superior fighting skills or advanced technology. Did not outsmart her with clever tactics or overpower her with alien abilities. Simply outlasted her. When she threw everything she had at him, he absorbed the punishment and kept fighting. When she broke his body, he ignored the pain and continued attacking. When she tried to break his spirit, she discovered that human spirits do not break easily. The battle lasted for hours. Jinwoo should have died a dozen times over, but he refused to stay down. Every time the Queen knocked him unconscious, he woke up and resumed fighting. Every time she thought she had finally broken him, he found new strength from somewhere deep inside. Finally, the Queen's ancient form began to collapse. The poison of human hope had spread through her entire being. She had spent so much energy trying to consume Jinwoo's despair that she had weakened herself beyond recovery. With a final scream that shattered reality in 17 dimensions, she died. The hive began collapsing around them as the Queen's death sent shockwaves through its twisted structure. Jinwoo dragged his broken body to an escape pod, clutching data storage devices that contained everything the galaxy would need to know about fighting the Stalkers. 3 days later, the Council rescue ships found him unconscious in his damaged pod, drifting through space. His teammates were gone, consumed by the darkness, but Jinwoo had returned, scarred and broken but alive. Because sometimes the best weapon is not the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced. Sometimes the best weapon is simply the one that refuses to break, no matter what.